And we're live.
Hello and welcome everybody to the 33rd, according to Nanya, it's the 33rd episode of Hell in the Handbasket, or more relevant than the episode number is that it's the 30th of October. So wait, does that mean Halloween was yesterday or today? Tomorrow.
Yes, 31st.
Oh. Jesus.
It's also going to be the day that the Jays beat the Dodgers in the World Series for once and for all. So looking forward to that tomorrow. Go
Okay.
Jays.
I don't know the first thing about baseball, besides the fact that it just kind of looks like kind of a convoluted sport, like there's got like so many things going on. It's like, okay, what do I mean? There's like a high degree of apparent abstraction if you just look at the thing, like there's a diamond, people are standing around half the time. One guy comes up and tries to whack the thing with a stick. That looks hard. That looks like it's a way unfair fight for that guy to have. It's like I just I'm not into sports at all of any kind, but I'm just kind of surprised that baseball was ever kind of considered America's national pastime. It just seems so improbable to me.
Yeah, well, long story short, it's World Series, LA Dodgers against Toronto Blue Jays. And currently Toronto's up 3-2 in the series. So if they win the next game or one of the next two games, they win. But you can't count out LA because they've got a pretty stacked team. Like they've got like a Hall of Fame team. So yeah, it's been a great series so far, though. Really has been.
Anyway, like I've never really seen, but I never really like seriously like watched baseball. But like you watch other sports and you see like highlight reels, a lot of highlight reels. But I don't really feel like you don't see those a lot in baseball. You see the batter hit the ball. That's about it. Those are usually
well, it's like you said. I mean, baseball it's not my favorite sport for sure. I'm more of a hockey, basketball type of guy. I like faster
hockey. I understand more.
Yeah, or boxing or UFC. Like I like faster sports, right? But sports like football or baseball, where the pace of play is a lot slower, I agree with you. I just get bored with it. But I'm on the bandwagon. What can I say? I don't think anybody expected Toronto to be in the World Series this year, so it's all good.
Do you watch competitive curling?
No, but you know what? If you've never watched curling, go watch curling. I don't have the foggiest clue how to play curling. I've never played. I don't know what the rules are. But man, when you watch it on TV and they're like, hard, sweep, sweep, I have no idea what they're doing, but I'm just mesmerized by it. I don't know why. Like, curling, like I know it has something to do with rocks and, knocking them off. I have no friggin' idea what they're doing, but anytime I see curling on, I'll stop and watch it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I thought that Canadians just automatically knew how to, like, you just guys, it's just a natural pastime. But here, the typical Canadian is curling in its natural habitat, as one does when they are Canadian. But
I don't know. Curling is big here, but I never got into it. I never understood it.
Never it's one that I remember seeing. Like I remember, like a long ass time ago when there was still such thing as TV and people would watch shit on TV. I remember like there was like late at night some weird sport. What was it? A roller derby or something would come on.
Oh yeah, roller derby was on forever.
Yeah, dude. I started kind of getting into it. I'm like, this is kind of interesting. You kind of figure it out because like literally there's like nothing else on at night.
Yeah.
But for some reason roller derby was on at night. But well, I don't know.
So the sister show to the roller derby was the American Gladiators. Did you ever watch that?
No. What's that?
It's basically a game show where the person has to go and fight these gladiators. It used to come on, at least where I was, it used to come on, it used to be roller derby and then American Gladiators back to back.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've heard this turn of phrase before, American Gladiators or something, but never really watched it. No. I basically grew up not really watching TV very much. My parents didn't like TV, But anyway, is there any way I could get you to share my screen?
Oh yeah, sure. What are we
So,
talking about today? I've been swamped at work this week, man, up to my ass in alligators. I have no clue what's going on in the world.
well, I'm sure that you've heard by now of the.
Prince
Okay,
Andrew?
there's. Oh, God. Okay. Well, I guess yeah. The first story that pops up: Prince Andrew stripped of Prince title, will move out of royal lodge. That's not what I wanted to start with, but I guess whatever. Yeah.
Hold on, before we get into this, for anybody watching, if you've never seen the Prince Andrew interview, go watch the Prince Andrew interview. It's the most hilarious use of 45 minutes you'll ever spend. It's easily the worst interview somebody's ever given. Um, I watch it probably once every 6 months just for a chuckle. Just go onto YouTube and just type in Prince Andrew interview. It'll be the first one that comes up. It is fantastic.
Oh, I don't know if I've ever. Or maybe I've seen
Oh,
clips or something. I don't know if I've ever watched.
that's the one
What?
where he said he didn't sweat and all that. Like he didn't have the ability to sweat and all this other nonsense. You never heard any of that about the Epstein
No,
thing? Go
but
watch
I
it.
mean,
Once we're
oh my
done recording this, please go watch it. Let me know what you thought of it because it's hilarious. It's
how
just
long?
watching some. It's only about 45 minutes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, but it's
Dang,
really
okay,
funny.
interesting. Yeah, I've not heard of this legendary interview. It does sound like he's even just as out of touch as he comes across as. You remember all of the shit that this guy's been through with being completely aloof and he's like I was watching. It's like Chris Hedges always says, "You should hate the rich," and I think that when he says that, he's referring to people like this that are so out of it that their wealth literally is like almost some kind of like pathology. Like they don't even know how to interface with normal human beings except for through their servants or something.
Well, like I said, go watch this interview and it will definitely hold true because like you can tell that this guy is completely out to lunch, you know. Anyway,
Prince
what's the
Andrew is
topic? What are we
stripped
talking about?
of his
Stripped of his
prince
title.
title. Well, okay, what do you take bets? Why do you think that he's stripped of his prince title?
Well, because he's a scumbag, pedophile, and
Yeah,
Charles doesn't want
exactly.
to be associated with him, really, pretty much.
Formal
Um,
notice has now been served to surrender the lease on Royal Lodge. Andrew will move into the royal estate in Sandringham, Norfolk. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations around him. Andrew gave up other royal titles earlier this month, including Duke of York, after more questions about his private life. In a posthumous memoir, Virginia Guffrey repeated allegations that as a teenager she had sex with Prince Andrew on 3 separate occasions. Andrew has always denied the claims, which that's not the first time I'll point out that she was supposedly 17 years old when she slept with him. But in the UK, the age of consent is 16. So if he just fucked somebody in his own country, he would have been fine. Why did you have to go off to Epstein Island? Well, this is what you get. In a statement, Guffrey's family called her an ordinary American girl who brought down a British prince. Also, this month, emails from 2011 reemerged showing Andrew had contact with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein months after he claimed their friendship has ended.
I don't
Yeah,
understand guys like this. Like, what do they see in girls that age? I don't get it. Like, you know, like I think about, and I'll go and I'll pick my oldest daughter up at school or whatever, right? And I'll see the kids there, and they're children. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't ever think of any of these girls in any sort of sexual way because no, they're all kids, man. Like who would like even at 16, 17, you can tell that a 16 or 17-year-old girl is 16 or 17. Like you can't
but that's
confuse
because like
that.
you're talking to them and stuff. You're actually like
Okay, yeah.
you have a conversation with somebody that's a child, and you realize, oh, this is a child. I have to speak with you like a child, and I have to treat you like a child because you're obviously still a child. Notwithstanding the fact that some 17-year-olds are like 6 feet tall, right? So,
Sure, sure.
uh, but if you're not doing that, you might as well be a freaking doll. You might as well just be a sex doll, right? You're not. It's not like you're just sticking it into a warm location. That's it. It's not like you're trying to care about. But I mean, she said that it was 3 separate occasions that he went out with her. I don't know. I think there's something else going on with this whole Prince Andrew nonsense because I'm thinking that for them to take him down like this over something that every other rich person did. Why isn't anybody talking about how many times, I don't know, Bush or Trump or somebody else has been to Epstein Island and who all they had sex with and all this stuff, right?
Well,
It's
you're
because there's
absolutely right.
other reasons why they're trying to sweep him out of his position of power, I think. But
Well, it could very well be just a personal issue, like you said. Now, I'm by no means a royal watcher, so I don't know a whole lot about this comedy of errors that is the royal family. But my understanding has always been that Charles and Andrew have never been close. And actually, Andrew was always Queen Elizabeth's favorite, apparently. Like he was the favorite child, and that was like openly known, right? Imagine how the other kids feel, like just knowing that. But no, open knowledge that Andrew was her favorite for whatever reason. So, you start to put the timeline together. The queen dies, Charles takes the throne, Charles boots Buddy out. It could just be that simple that they've just never gotten along. And Charles just sees this as, okay, you know what? I've put up with this freak for too long. He's a bad look for the royal family. I don't like him anyway. Sayonara. It could just be that. You're right. I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't just that,
I
right?
mean, yeah, I
Sounds
mean,
right.
but besides those like secret injuries, like, and I don't really pay attention to what these overrated, out of touch cretins, who, the the shit end of our society, who somehow thinks that they're the top, the elite, right? Um, the scumbags, the worst scumbags. I think that it's probably not worth that much to pay attention to their lives either. So I don't really know, but I think that something's going on in the background. They're trying to remove him through internal power politics, and that's why this Jeffrey Epstein thing, which otherwise is like a right? Nobody talks about it. They'll bring it up when they want to take out Trump, and they want to bring it up with Trump. But otherwise, it's like, hey, why are we still talking about the whole Epstein thing, right? So I think that they're using that because they just know it's a shocking, it's an issue that galvanizes people. I don't know, it's a third rail. But let me see here. So the Prince Andrew thing, that was just like a side story. I didn't know if we would get to that, but I think much more important story that we should focus on. We probably should have started with this in the first place. Is the Budivyesnik missile? So I'm sure that everybody's heard by now the Budivyesnik missile, right? So it's Russia's nuclear powered cruise missile. And here, like, to introduce this, let's see. Hope I hunted down this clip. Ooh, I just realized you're probably not going to hear the audio on it. Wait, there might be a way for me to do the audio as well. But the audio is going to be in Russian anyway, isn't it? But okay, I'll find out. Hold up. Yeah, it's in Russian anyway.
Oh well.
So let me try to do subtitles. The subtitles are in Russian. That does not do anybody any help. Annotations, closed captions. What the hell? But
That's
anyway, so
okay.
this is
We back to it.
no. This is a legendary clip. I want to see if I can get it going. Settings for. Are you freaking kidding me? Whatever. Let me do a different. Let me pull it up in a different browser so that I can get the volume, so I can get the audio as well. So let me stop sharing this screen.
As Bradley does that, like, share, subscribe down below.
Right. Do the YouTubey things, right? Yeah, I'll just use the same exact clip. And I will share this new screen. Work now. Present. Okay, so you should go ahead and share that. So you should be able to hear the volume.
Hey, keep going.
Okay. Russian President Vladimir Putin, they didn't listen to us, so listen to us now. Russia's latest missile and weapon systems. President Putin said, due to its unlimited range, it can maneuver for an unlimited amount of time. Nobody in the world has anything similar. Same day they might have it, but someday they might have it, but by that time, our guys will invent something else. Okay, so this is kind of like their cheesy ass graphic depicting their
оснащенность вооруженных сил современным
Oh, she's
оружием
cute. Just pause her, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, let's just say that.
возросла в 3,7 раза.
Оснащенная современным образцом ВВСТ. Силы получили. Okay, they're just showing.
Вооружение принято более 300 новых образцов военной техники.
So there he's discussing that this is how long ago was this? 7 years ago, this clip. Vladimir Putin basically here is saying that our military is now being, so all the way back then, was being armed with these new variants of new weapon systems.
В состав стратегических ядерных сил поступило 80 новых межконтинентальных баллистических ракет.
By this point in time already, 7 years ago, they had already developed 80 new ballistic missile systems. 80 new ballistic missile systems. This is before they have all this stuff going on now.
102 баллистические ракеты подводных лодок. 3 ракетных подводных крейсера стратегического назначения «Борей». Перевооружены на новый ракетный комплекс «Ярс» 12 ракетных полков.
Our submarines are going to be launching badass rockets. See, and you know what's interesting is like these are really cheesy graphics. Like these graphics, they are primitive, right? By modern standards. And we laughed at their...
Это обход рубежей обороны показываем. Поскольку дальность неограниченная, она может как угодно долго.
All right, so what did we just observe? What did we see? This is Vladimir Putin is talking about the Burevestnik missile. This is this new missile system. And he said that at this point in time that they've already worked out dozens of new weapon systems, dozens of new missile systems, and only one of which was the Burevestnik. Burevestnik translated means something like storm harbinger, harbinger of storm. So this Storm Harbinger missile was one of the three or four major missile systems that he had that they were talking about. One of them was the I believe was the Kinjal. We had the Poseidon, the Zircon, I believe the Zircon, and the Burevestnik. And in this clip for a short period of time, I think they even shows you the Oreshnik. I think this right here, I don't think this is the Burevestnik, because Burevestnik is more like a cruise missile, right? So it wouldn't be launching out into space like this. That looks like the Oreshnik, because the Oreshnik does this, right? And then each of these warheads. So they were telling us about all of these new weapon systems that they were developing back then. And this was sort of, you have to realize that this was at a period of time where we were escalating tensions with the Russians over not just, tensions were escalating not only over like Syria, right, but over Ukraine already. It was, they were already very, very tense. there was already very tense competition that was sort of crossing the Rubicon from the political and clandestine to the overtly violent, with Maidan coup and all this other stuff. So the Russians, seeing where this was going to go, right? And let me pull up other. Well, let's see what Reuters has to say about this. I can already guess, right? Reuters is going to be like, "What is this overrated missile that sucks and nobody wants it?" But so what did they do? So they figured this out. They game planned this. They were like, okay, so what happens when you start winning the war, right? So we take Crimea, we take the Donbass. What happens when we win the war, right? Well, there's going to be escalation. So what can we do to prevent to basically show escalatory dominance. So to prevent the escalation through showing escalatory dominance, you say it's not worth it. And back then, Vladimir Putin said that, and that's why that in that clip, I mean, he didn't say it in that clip, or maybe he did at the very end, but the clip was called "Let Them Listen to Us Now," right? Because that's one of the things that came out of Vladimir Putin's mouth. He was like, "Они нас не слушали, пускай послушают сейчас," or something. "Пускай слушают сейчас." We're like, they didn't listen to us. Let them hear now, So back then, Vladimir Putin already kind of viewed it as this is our checkmate moment. And these weapon systems, these new weapon systems, they came out on different timelines. Like the S-400 came out, S-500 Prometei, I think. That one, they have examples of it, like maybe from a couple years back. The Kinjal has been used and has been in Russian armed service arsenal for years now, right? For at least 2 years. The Zircon had been used. The Zircon had been tested. The Oryashnik had been tested. All of these weapon systems are now in mass production. So it's shocking that back then, this would have been the time for Jake Sullivan to get his panties up in a bunch about our supply lines, about whether or not we are using Chinese rare earth minerals in our whether or not we're using Chinese rare earth minerals in our military systems, and whether or not that's going to cause a problem in the future. So that would have been the time to be worried about that. But no, we were really cocky, and we looked at those terrible graphics, and we said that this was a joke, that this was not going to happen, and now it did. Now we have the Poseidon, right? The Russians. So the Poseidon has a loitering capability. You can launch it out. It could be swimming around your coasts for months. Who the hell knows if and when it decides to hit your coastal waters, right? Wipe out Florida completely or something. So you have that. Then you have the Burevestnik missile, which, I mean, I've heard people say that it has like a long-term loitering capability. Like you could launch it up and it could just be doing circles up somewhere in the North Pole. So that could give the Russians another rung on the escalatory ladder. You could also escalate to the point where the Burevestniks are literally sort of Damocles is over your head, moment.
Well, they're nuclear powered, right? So, like,
Powered in their
in
nuclear,
theory,
and they
yeah,
care.
in theory, they can be flying around the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean for weeks, and just ready to strike, which kind of makes the idea of air defenses kind of dead, assuming that this works.
Well, especially if you think about how American air defenses are, because think about like the Patriot and stuff. Those radars are pointed in a direction. Like they have radars that face a certain direction, not like the Russians where they have their radars 360 spins and all this stuff. Our radar is like 180-degree radar, so that means that all you got to do is come around. But I'm guessing that this would probably be more like a strategic weapon, like.
Well, you got numbnuts talking about building his golden dome, and it's like, well, against this, get out of here, save your money,
Yeah, well, I mean, again, they can't defend it against any of these systems, and that was the point. That's why Putin said, "Let them listen to us now." Back then, he was already checkmated you. We just didn't realize it. So now, when we're trying to do something like escalate with Tomahawk missiles being sent out to Ukraine, Vladimir Putin can counter escalate with something like this, with a Budivěstnik, right? Which you be like, okay, well, but you think you can reach out and touch me from Ukraine? I can reach out and touch you from here, and I can touch you anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's shocking. This is like some science fiction level stuff. But I mean, so has all of this other, like, I don't know what happened to the Russians. Like, what the hell around that time? Because they worked out a scramjet rocket. They worked out hypersonic glide vehicles, the Kinjal, right? Around that time, that's when we started seeing like the T-14 Armada and the Terminator BMP. Like there's something just like really kicked them in the butt, you know.
Well, the difference too is you've got one that's state run and another one that outsources, all R&D to these private entities who have got their own agenda, which is to make money, right? If you were to go back in the day with the Manhattan Project, well, why was the Manhattan Project successful? It was run by the U.S. Army, right? It was run by the government. And they just said, you know what? Money be damned. Get the smartest people we can possibly get, put them all in, one place and have them come up with a solution. Same thing with NASA and what they do, right? So, and that's what the Russians do with their military R&D. And given that, they have the best interest of the state at hand and not their bottom line, yeah, they'll innovate. These guys at Lockheed Martin, they're not innovating shit. Why would
they're
they?
innovating
Right?
ways to make their shit disposable so that you would have to pay them more money whenever you replace it, so the battery is
Well,
super customized and you can't just put double A's in there. There you go. Got to buy it from Raytheon. We're trying to figure out that kind of stuff.
Either you make it disposable or probably more likely make it like upgradable, because that's easy. All they have to do, they've got that Patriot missile system, oh yeah, we got a new version, new model, Patriot
Mhm.
2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. You can keep going and they'll make little tweaks to it and then just keep rolling them out. That's usually what a lot of companies do with a lot of products. Why would military be any different, right? So
NATO
yeah,
refers to this
that's the
weapon as
difference.
the SSCX-9 Skyfall. It's very rare that the Russians get cool sounding names for their weapons. Usually we call it something like the faggot or, the fish bed or something like this. So like they're, for them to call it something like the Skyfall is kind of cool. Anyway, so Putin revealed the project in March of 2018. Bros, we had all this time. No, it's funny, dude. Imagine if the Russians didn't come out and just say it. Maybe that's brilliant. Maybe what happened is Putin hid it in plain sight by doing that, so that we were like, oh, we already know what they're talking about. They showed us the freaking whatever. But if it had been all hush hush, we were like, what the hell are the Russians up to? I don't know. But anyway, Putin first revealed the project 2018. Said it had unlimited range, can evade U.S. missile defenses, but some Western experts have questioned its strategic value, saying it won't add capabilities that Moscow does not already have and may disgorge radiation along its flight path. So from my understanding, this is actually one thing that they got right, because we've tried to run experiments with this kind of weapon system in the past, and we were having problems with radiation.
Right, but think about that in the context of this article. That last half sentence, it's like it's so silly in this article. Just there, it may disgorge radiation. Oh my goodness, they're not environmentally friendly missiles.
Oh,
Bad
yeah. I didn't
Russian,
even think about it
right?
like that. Yeah.
It's such a silly, like, why put that in there? It's so nonsensical. But anyway.
Well, it's okay. Well, it's because we've run these experiments and that's the results that we came up with. But that's what I'm saying. The
No,
Russians
but what they're trying to say is Russia bad. Look at these mean Russians. They don't love the environment like they do. This is all like unconscious messaging by the good people at Reuters.
yeah, but also notice how they said it, right? Some Western experts have questioned, saying it won't add capabilities Moscow doesn't have and may disgorge. So that
Yeah, what
they're
experts?
using that kind of language. And the reason why
What experts?
I'm just telling you, the reason
Yeah,
why they're using that is because our experiments resulted in this dirty mess. But what
oh,
the Russians managed to do. No, let
well,
me
I
finish.
have no idea that it's radioactive. But
What the Russians managed to do is make a relatively clean engine, so it does not disgorge this crazy amount of radiation that our experiments with this type of technology had in the past. That's all I wanted to say. But yeah, you're right that they're using it to say Russia bad because boohoo, Mother Earth.
Yeah.
But yeah, Putin said on Sunday the weapon was unique. Russia's top general Gerasimov, chief of the staff of General Staff of Russia's Armed Forces, told Putin in the October 21st test the missile traveled 14,000 kilometers, 8,700 miles, and was in the air for 15 hours. He said it traveled on nuclear power and it could defeat any missile defense and has a limited range. I'm not sure if they tell you what the speed is, but from my understanding, it's like high subsonic speed. The nuclear propulsion is designed to enable it to fly much further for longer than traditional turbojet or turbofan engines that are limited by how much fuel they can carry. This would allow it to loiter for an extended period before hitting a target. The Nuclear Threat Initiative, a U.S.-based nonprofit security organization, said that it could stay aloft potentially for days. In operation, the Burevestnik would carry a nuclear warhead or warheads, circle the globe at low altitude, avoid missile defense systems, dodge terrain, drop the warheads at a difficult to predict location or locations. So yeah. Some Western experts say the Burevestnik's subsonic speed would make it detectable and would become more vulnerable the longer it stays in flight. Responding to this, Russian military expert Alexei Lenkov wrote in 2019 that the role of the Burevestniks would be to eliminate the remnants of the enemy's command posts, military bases, factories, power plants, after Russia had already fired intercontinental ballistic missiles, which point the opponent's air defense systems would be incapable of stopping them. He said Burevestniks would trample the aggressor countries into the Stone Age by completing the destruction of the military and civilian infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 2020 report by the United States Air Force National Air and Space Intelligence Center said that if Russia successfully brought the Burevestnik into service, it would give Moscow a, quote, unique weapon with intercontinental range capability. So think about this. It's a cruise missile with intercontinental range capability, intercontinental cruise missile.
Mm-hmm. Well, you think about it, right? Like the whole notion of having, for example, forward operating bases, Russia wouldn't need them. Yeah, right? Like U.S. has got all these bases all over the place for refueling and restock. Russia can just shoot these things from their home country anytime they want. And, basically let them fly around for as long as they want. It seems to me like the whole notion of anti-air defense, assuming these things work as they're supposed to, it's kind of a 20th century concept now, right? So, as well as the whole idea of forward operating bases too. What do you need them for? They're just a costly mess, right?
It's like just a different tool set, right? Like, okay, they don't have to have a aircraft carrier in the vicinity to launch one of these. It'll get there eventually. Subsonic, it's pretty sure it's high subsonic. But anyway, Burevestnik has a poor test record with numerous past failures, according to Western experts. In 2019, 5 Russian nuclear specialists were killed in an explosion and release of radiation during an experiment in the White Sea. U.S. intelligence sources said they suspected it was part of a test of the Burevestnik. Putin claimed Putin presented their widows with top state honors, saying the weapon they were developing was without equal in the world, although he did not name it. Putin announced a successful test of the missile in October 2023. But anyway, so what have the Russians done? So we've already saw the Oreshnik moment, right, as they call it, where the Russians let out this crazy weapon that has no equal in American arsenal. It has no there's no defense against this weapon, right? And it's not the first time, right? Because there's also really realistically no defense against the Kinjal. The Ukrainians say they've shot down Kinjal missiles, but they've never been able to demonstrate that. So I don't think that they can even bring down of all the lowest tier of these Russian weapons that there are, the Kinjal, because they say that they're even having a very difficult time shooting down modern Iskanders. So if they're having a hard time shooting down modern Iskanders, they're never been able to demonstrate or conclusively prove that they've been able to even shoot down a Kinjal, the much more numerous, much less sophisticated, still hypersonic maneuvering Kinjals. That whenever they launch a Kinjal, remember the Ukrainians get ample warning because these weapon systems are launched from platforms that are airborne. So you have to get airborne to launch these missiles. So that means the Ukrainians have a view of what's going to happen, of when those are incoming. Still, they can't shoot them down. Then there's Oreshnik, which, I mean, if anybody's seen the video, you know, the notion of shooting that down. What? There's just what is there to shoot down? It's like difficult to explain. Like I don't think that's how that works. It just doesn't seem like that kind of weapon system. You probably have to shoot it down way before it freaking launched those MIRVs. So that's and then the Poseidon, which already the Poseidon is an underwater version of this, and now the Budivisi. So I don't know what the hell they got it, like what the hell got into them, you know, but I feel like we need some Russian innovation like that they've had in this couple of like last decade or so here in America, our chip manufacturing and our military industrial complex. But I don't know. I have a feeling that that's not going to happen. So anyway.
Well, it hasn't happened in the last 35 years. So why would it start now?
Yeah, why would it all of a sudden happen now, right? It's going to be the same winners and losers. So no, it's never going to happen. So operationally, historically, Budivesnik sits at the intersection of earlier nuclear propulsion experiments and modern precision strike doctrine. It echoes the United States Cold War Project Pluto lineage, abandoned for safety and strategic rationale. This is what I was talking about. So we tried to work out something like this, and we could not hack it. The Russians did. And the same thing with the freaking... We were the ones that were ahead of the world in scramjet technology, and the Russians are the ones that hack it. You see, like, what is this? While adopting contemporary guidance, low observable shaping associated with the current cruise inventories, Russian authorities now frame the 21st October firing as proof of concept for endurance and routing flexibility. After years-long development path marked by intermittent testing and safety controversy, the Kremlin statement that the system is readying for deployment, coupled with broader strategic forces drills, positions Budivesnik as part of a portfolio intended to signal that Russia retains multiple diverse long-range operations beyond classic ICBMs and SLBMs.
Okay.
So basically,
moral of the story: Russians got pretty cool weapons compared to the West.
Yeah, and we're coping hard. And I mean, you can see why, because this is a pretty hard cope. But if there was any doubt that if there was any temptation that we could take the Russians out, take the Russians on through nuclear war, because that's the plan, right? That's still the plan, is that we could survive it, but we'll take out the Russians and we'll bomb all of their areas with natural resources so that they'll be completely screwed. So if those are your plans, right, if you're thinking you can escalate all the way up there, the higher up the escalations ladder you go, the scarier the Russian arsenal actually is. It's actually more intimidating once they have Poseidon and they have this guy and they have all this other stuff that we can't shoot down, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I think all of this is coming to an end really quick because Europe doesn't have any money to fight this.
They've just been outguessed. They just been checkmated, and so that's what I think. That's what Putin was saying. It's like, let them listen to us now. So he was already he put his flag in the dirt there, right? Saying, no, this is for real. And I guess we just didn't. I don't know, but I thought this was an interesting story, which just shows sometimes I feel like the CIA like intimidating, right? They create like who the hell knows what kind of dark shit they're doing. But at the same time, every once in a while, they seem like they're like Wile E. Coyote or something. Like you're just like they're the most unfortunate, bumbling fools that there could be. Like remember that one time where a bunch of Venezuelan fishermen stopped the revolt. Oh, it was supposed to be the. So remember that? Okay. Well, anyway, in this similar vein, here we go. U.S. sought to lure Nicolas Maduro's pilot into betraying the Venezuelan leader. And of course, they're going to write this like it's a dun, 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 dun James Bond story. Federal agent had a daring pitch for Nicolas Maduro's chief pilot. All he had to do was surreptitiously drive the Venezuelan's president plane to a place where the U.S. authorities would nab the strongman. In exchange, the agent told the pilot in a clandestine meeting the aviator would be a very rich man. The conversation was tense. Pilot left non-committal, though he provided the agent Edwin Lopez with a cell number, a sign he might be interested in helping the U.S. government. Over the next 16 months, even after retiring from his government job, Lopez kept at it, chatting with the pilots over an encrypted messaging app. The untold intrigue-filled saga of how Lopez tried to flip the pilot has all the elements of a Cold War spy thriller, luxury private jets, secret meeting. No, that's how you're writing it. This is not they're trying to make it seem fantastic. They tried to freaking bribe Nicolas Maduro's pilot to fly Nicolas Maduro somewhere where, as they say, they could nab him.
And the pilot said no. End of story. Details
of the ultimately unsuccessful plan were drawn from interviews with 3 current and former U.S. officials, as well as one of Maduro's opponents. All spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were either not authorized to discuss the effort or feared retribution for disclosing it. The Associated Press also reviewed and authenticated text exchanges between Lopez and the pilot. Oh, rest. Okay, you can rest easy. The Associated Press confirmed it. They took a look at it and they said, trust me, boys. It started with a trip on Maduro's planes. Like, guys, this is not a freaking James Bond. Stop it.
I don't understand the point of this article. At the end of the day, it was a big CIA failure. So why this investigative article into a CIA failure? I don't understand. They fucked up.
You know what I'm thinking?
They never
it
succeeded.
Seems like, what if it was this? What if it was like, remember ages ago when there was that Ukrainian plot to try to get Russian pilots to flip sides, and they got like clowned because the SBU knew about it right away, and like they paid money, and then they got exposed. And that entire time there was that Krista Grozev, that professional Russophobe from Bellingcat, the joke of investigative outlet, the obvious like joke of a news outlet. And they similar thing. He came out with a story about that, and he was talking about how, oh my god, it was harrowing. They had this whole James Bond Mission Impossible music laced theme track story going on as well, and it ended up in a failure. So it seems like he was there along for the ride. They've been working on this whole thing for months. They thought it would be a badass story, and now he's going to lay it out. He's going to still write it like a badass story. Really, there's nothing badass about this. And all this does is it shows who Associated Press really is. Trying to rattle Maduro, realizing that the Villegas wasn't going to join the plan, Lopez and other anti-Maduro movement decided to try to unnerve the Venezuelan leader, according to 3 people familiar with the operation. Oh my gosh, let's say, okay, let's just do last 2 paragraphs. The birthday wish seen by almost 3 million people sent shocking waves of, okay, ex-post minute before a sanctioned Airbus that Maduro had been flying took off from Caracas. 20 minutes later, the plane unexpectedly returned to the airport. The birthday wish, seen by almost 3 million people, sent shockwaves across Venezuelan social media as Maduro's opponents speculated the pilot had been ordered to return to face interrogation. Others wondered if he would be jailed. Nobody saw or heard from Villegas for days. Then on September 24th, the pilot resurfaced in an Air Force flight suit on a widely followed TV show hosted by Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello. Cabello laughed off any suggestion that Venezuela's military could be bought as he praised Villegas' loyalty, claiming him an unfailing kick-ass patriot. The pilot stood by silently, clenching a fist in display of his loyalty. Yeah, so they're trying to, it's like, you know what they're doing? They're sugarcoating a shit pill. They're trying to put lipstick on a pig. Guys, the MI6 sucks so bad that we screwed this one up as well. This is like MI6 CIA.
But why even publish it then? You know, like
Because he's been around for the ride. Like, why did Crystal Grozev publish that article if it just ended up making everybody laugh at him? It feels like he was along for the ride. Now it feels like, you know, like it's got legs of its own or something. You know, it's got like a life of its own. You interviewed all these people for this massive piece that now is not going to come out. But I mean, I feel like it shouldn't come out because this is crap. You know what? Like, you can find, you know, James Bond books exist. You can read those James Bond books and it would be better than this crap. And I mean, equally fictional, most of it anyway, right? So
yeah, and look at that last sentence there. There was even a final machination because the pilot wasn't playing ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was even a final machination aimed at rattling the Venezuelan president about the pilot's true loyalties. So think about what scumbags these people in the CIA are. They are going to spread lies about this poor pilot that could potentially get him killed. Like, what if Maduro had believed it and lopped his head off or something, right? Bottom line is the CIA, they don't give a fuck about anybody. They don't give a fuck about the people
Just
that,
like Ukraine, just like Afghanistan, they'll use you up, spit you out.
Yeah. Well, what a bunch of scumbags. What's the next story?
All right. So staying on the South American theme, we go right into Marco Rubio, obsessed with both Venezuela. Like, can you stop this? Okay, it's because I don't have an ad blocker on this browser.
In fairness to Marco, I think he's into the Latino men, and there's a lot of Latino men down in South America. So
yeah, and apparently it's like the Venezuelans are not down with the gay marriage, apparently, and they are not down with the trans surgery. So Marco is just like, this is a travesty. It must stop. Some of Secretary of State, oh my gosh, dude. I should have just, whatever. Marco Rubio's former Democratic colleagues are already expressing regret over their vote in support of the former senator, but his boosters on both sides of the aisle aren't ready to give up on his ability to influence President Trump. Long term, he will have a real influence. Short term, I think he's probably going to get his feet on the ground. Senator Mike Rounds, Republican, South Dakota, a staunch Ukraine supporter, told The Hill, as long as they provide him with the opportunity to make a difference, Marco can do some really good things for this administration. Oh boy. Oh my gosh, my battery's starting to run low. Confirmed on day one of the administration, Rubio has been a spokesperson for foreign policy that often diverges from his past positions, particularly those on the Ukraine war, and standing up to Russia and its president, Vladimir Putin. Rubio has also been the face of Trump and Elon Musk crusade. Trump and Elon Musk's crusade against the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. What war? They just try to freaking cow it to themselves. Trump appeared to put Rubio in charge of the tall task of gaining control of the Panama Canal, joking during his joint address to Congress that he'd known who to blame if the efforts fail. Marco's been amazing. He's going to do a great job, the president added. But nothing is testing Rubio's credibility in the Senate like Trump's hard shift towards Putin and away from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in a push for peace talks. His position is now Secretary of Sycophants, not Secretary of State, Richard Blumenthal said. Senator Rubio, remember, this is freaking Richard Blumenthal. Senator Rubio, his words, we've covered Blumenthal before. Senator Rubio, his words, his actions, his legislation, he was one way. And somehow when he walked through that door and took that oath to become our secretary there are not the same. They are not one and the same, said Senator Jackie Rosen, Democrat, Nevada, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So I will say, maybe I regret it, and I'm very disappointed. He knows all of these things. He's been working on it. He has the record, and why isn't he standing up to what he's always believed in? So because he doesn't believe in anything. He's a cheap suit who gets bought out by, the people that actually tell him what to believe in, quote unquote. Senators Chris Murphy and Chris Van Hollen, Democrats, both said they regretted backing Rubio during Sunday show interviews last weekend. Some stone-faced and silent during an explosive Oval Office meeting between Trump and Zelensky. Rubio's expression was closely watched for signs of discomfort, given his long-standing, ardent support for Ukraine. The only thing that matters is getting Putin to negotiate, Rubio told George Stephanopoulos last weekend on ABC's This Week. The full-throated defense of Trump has been a consistent part of Rubio's public remarks. Behind closed doors, he's fielding calls from shocked European allies and worried senators. I'm actively communicating with Secretary Rubio, Senator Chris Coons, who said he is focused on restoring U.S. foreign aid that Trump froze on his first day in office. One Democratic aide familiar with the discussions in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee said that there's an understanding about Rubio's difficult position. If he pushes back against Trump, he'll be out of a job and he'll have no influence at all. Some senators still see Rubio's foreign policy experience and familiarity with the State Department as assets, despite Trump being the ultimate decider. I stay in contact with Marco, and he's in the middle of it. There's a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and he's one of them, said Senator Steve Daines, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Okay, Trump reportedly backed Rubio following tensions back and forth with Musk during a cabinet meeting, with the president saying Rubio is doing a great job. Rubio is traveling to Saudi Arabia next week for a high-stakes meeting with Ukrainian officials aimed to repair ties ruptured during the Oval Office debacle. On the line for Kiev is restoring U.S. military aid and intelligence sharing, which Trump has halted this week. One former senator, a senior Republican official, told Rubio seemed handicapped by not having his team fully in place at the State Department, adding it's unclear who his allies are in the administration. Wait, think about how they're putting this. It's unclear who Rubio's allies are in the administration. Wait, Rubio should be Trump's ally in the administration. It's Trump's administration, right? No, he's there to be their guy, right? To pull Trump to where he's at. And this is kind of like the real point of me going into this article. Wyckoff is heading to Saudi Arabia with Rubio next week alongside National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Waltz, I think there was hope that he would be an ally of Rubio's. He's in a tough spot too, and he arguably even more has to toe the line than Rubio does. So I don't think Rubio has found an ally there so far, the former official said. Let's see. I know what's happened to Marco Rubio, said Elizabeth Warren. He has been a strong and effective defender of Ukraine. He has fought against dictators, particularly Putin, when they invaded Ukraine. He has been a consistent and steady supporter of food and medicine for little babies all around the world. Okay, Warren, little babies. See, Marco Rubio has been a consistent defender of little babies around the world. Oh, also of Ukraine, which is bombing little babies. Trump joked about Rubio's 99-0 vote in the Senate during his joint address Tuesday, saying, I'm either very, very happy about that or I'm very concerned about it. Republican allies said the attention from Trump during the high-profile speech was a sign of Rubio's continued influence within the administration. I talk to him daily, sometimes multiple times a day. I never find him on the outside of things ever, said James Rich, Idaho, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. You don't appreciate the president's humor. That's the problem. You just don't appreciate the Senate president's humor. So anyway. So what has Marco Rubio been doing in the background? Marco Rubio has been the devil on Trump's shoulder, basically talking him out of all the good ideas that Donald Trump had. So when Donald Trump goes out there and he has this discussion has this meeting in Alaska, right? And they come away with certain tangible results that get undone and get undermined. Or when Donald Trump says that he's going to have this meeting in Hungary, right? And then all of a sudden he's the one that cancels it. We can see that Rubio is the one that is always part of that influence. And he plays a huge role in that influence. So yeah, as they say, he's smart enough to know it's not easy. It's not hard to hack a narcissist, right? Push back and you stroke their ego. So he does that. And then what they're complaining about at the Hill is that Marco Rubio doesn't have enough other people on his team to help pull the Trump administration away from Trump's policies and towards his policies. They're openly complaining that Donald Trump is the president and not Marco Rubio, I guess. So
sure.
This is so Marco Rubio has been goddamn, I might have to find a charger because I might be able to make it.
Well, I don't know anything about the Hill. From what I've seen, they seem to be a bit of a deep state rag. But
yeah, but they're kind of like an insider, kind of think of him like a Democrat insider kind of.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, how I took this article and what they're saying is, to your point, is Marco Rubio is our guy. He's the deep state guy, right? So he's going to keep Trump on plan. Now, the deep state plan, it's not a Republican plan, it's not a Democrat plan, it's a uniparty plan. And Marco is the one who is kind of steering Trump in the
Bingo.
direction that he needs to be steered. So,
Bingo.
as we all know, Trump can be easily manipulated. Uh, Basically, the last person who talks to him gets their way because he's the type of guy who just wants to be liked, right? And, rather than have a conflict with some people, he'll, give them what they want. So I suspect there's a lot of that going on too. So I think that Rubio is smart enough to know how to your point, manipulate Trump and, fluff his ego, pump his tires, whatever it is he needs to do. He's figured out how to kind of be the Trump whisperer and, act on the behalf of,
Between
his.
him and Lindsey Graham, they were
Yeah.
they've cornered the Trump whispering. Lindsey
Yeah.
Graham gets one ear, and then Marco Rubio gets the other ear. And then every once in a while, Steve Witkoff comes, and Trump gets an ADHD moment and listens to what Witkoff has to say. And then these guys come back.
Yeah.
Then he puts his headphones back on.
Yeah.
So anyway, so here's what Ukraine. So meanwhile, so we're talking about Rubio's influence, right? And here is what Ukrainiannews.com. This is not even Ukrainska Pravda. I don't even think I've ever really read this. I had a story from Ukrainska Pravda, but I guess whatever, this one will do. U.S. President Donald Trump this week first abandoned the idea of meeting with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin again. Oh my gosh, this is going to be great. Look at this. Russian, lowercase, dictator Vladimir Putin, lowercase, and then imposed the first direct sanctions against Moscow, lowercase. Oh my god, dude!
Hold on, I love this ad. Look at the ad.
This
Sir,
one or this one?
The one with
Your
the
shape
chick.
is incredible.
How many times per week do you visit the gym? 0. I just doing military workout every day. Every man over 50 should try it. So what is this? Is this a recruitment ad, or I don't know what's going on
This
here.
is some kind of new diet thing. They just don't know how to advertise to me. Some kind of diet thing. It's got to be. How many times do you visit the gym per week? I don't know. Maybe it's a double entendre, right? I don't know. Who knows? All right.
I thought this was a Ukrainian site, so I thought
It is, but
were
I mean,
trying
on this browser, I don't have like a VPN or anything like this, so it's like trying to, and I don't have any ad blockers. I do on my other browser, but then I don't get audio if I use other browser. If I want, So I was playing clipped. It's stuff. Whatever. U.S. president.
Well, okay. Ukrainians, sure, sign up for the military workout. You won't have to worry about leg day once they get blown off, anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Leg day is a thing of the past. Never. I went to war. Never had to do leg day again. It was his assessment of Moscow's intransigence. Oh my gosh! Again, lowercase Moscow's intransigence in ending the war against Ukraine. That's going to be hard for me to now not notice. Okay, capital Ukraine. Trump to act. Bloomberg writes about this with reference.
Oh, how petty is that? I just noticed. Okay, how petty is that? My God. Right?
It's such a Ukrainian thing, dude. It's like they always said, the Ukrainians, на зло кондуктору куплю билет, пойду пешком. So Ukrainian, just to stick it to the train conductor, will buy the ticket and walk home anyway. Just to show it to him. Like, yeah, I bought your stupid ticket, but I still walked home just because I hate you so much. Like, okay. According to it's like in American we say cut your nose off to spite your face, right? Like,
sure.
It was his assessment of okay. According to the publication, Trump's sharp reversal is related to Rubio's assessment of Moscow's position on ending the war against Ukraine, which in his opinion has not changed significantly. To understand this, the U.S. Secretary of State did not even need to meet with his Russian counterpart. Russian Foreign Minister Well, at least they put foreign minister in capital letters, Sergei Lavrov. Oh, careful, man. This author might get in trouble. Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, a phone conversation was enough for Rubio to see that the Kremlin is once again trying to slow down the ceasefire negotiations and prolonging the war. The meeting between the U.S. Secretary of State and the Russian foreign minister, which was planned after the phone call, was canceled by the American side. See, that's the thing. The Americans are the ones that suggested it, and then they're the ones that canceled it. So this is what I'm saying. Marco Rubio, the Trump whisperer, it basically is got to be the reason why they canceled those talks that were to be held in Hungary. Rubio's influence in the administration and in the administration's change of heart signals an even more expansive role for the top U.S. diplomat, who has also advocated for a more aggressive approach to Venezuela as Trump's interim national security advisor. His stance contrasted with the more accommodating strategy towards Russia advocated by Trump's longtime friend and special envoy Steve Witkoff. Publication notes that there's no signs that Witkoff has lost his influence or status in the Trump administration's attempts to engage in a dialogue with the Kremlin. However, some of Bloomberg's interlocutors noted that it was his involvement in talks with Putin and other Russian officials on the eve of the Alaska summit that had led to confusion. And Washington mistakenly decided that Moscow was ready to make concessions that it was not going to make in reality. So this whole thing about the Alaska summit and the concessions thing, I've heard a lot of kind of whispering about what really was agreed on and not agreed on there. And it seems like what might have happened was Witkoff came to the Putin and said, here's a proposal, like partial freeze along some lines, de facto somewhere recognition, de jure somewhere else recognition. There'd be nothing to talk about if they didn't sign up for neutrality, Ukrainian neutrality, right? So they must have had something like that going on. And the plan fell through. And what they're doing is they're blaming, instead of blaming Donald Trump's expectations and hopes, the plan fell through, but the Russians have been very consistent about what their point was the whole entire time. It's your fault that you decided to hear out of Vladimir Putin's mouth something that he didn't say, which, Vladimir Putin on the Russians have always said, we have some basic minimum requirements for ending this conflict. The conflict started for a reason. We need to address the root causes of that conflict, is what they say. Mm-hmm. Spirited by the agreement in the Middle East, Trump agreed to meet with Putin again when he spoke with him on the phone on October 16th. After that, Bloomberg notes Moscow sent Washington its plan with Russia's conditions for peace deal with Ukraine. And in this plan, the Kremlin again put forward the same maximalist demands as before, including a demand that Ukraine voluntarily give up territories that it failed to occupy to Russia. That Ukraine voluntarily give up territories that it failed to occupy to Russia. I think they were so focused on getting the right lower cases and upper cases, they just didn't pay that much attention to the phrasing. So they're calling Russia's really, really tame conditions. These are very humble, modest conditions. They're calling those maximalist. Last time, the U.S. needed a meeting in Alaska to realize there was no flexibility on the Russian side. This time, the realization occurred before the meeting, which is good, which is a good step. Diana Fix, a senior fellow for Europe and the Council of Foreign Relations, commented on the situation in a conversation with journalists. So we can see what Europe is doing about this, right? The EU is absolutely thrilled and absolutely excited. They hate Orban. Orban is like the black sheep of the EU. So they're like, yeah, we were able to stop this from happening. Where the imminent potential onset of a disastrous peace, they were able to prevent it. However, the very next day after meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump demanded a ceasefire along the contact line, an idea that Putin had categorically rejected before the Alaska summit, according to newspaper sources in Moscow. Not according to newspaper sources in Moscow. Oh, look, they forgot to make Moscow not capital. Moscow's capitalized. Probably spell check did that for them. He didn't even notice. Idea that had categorically rejected before the Alaska summit, according to newspaper sources in Moscow. No, that's according to just newspaper sources everywhere. You don't have to go to newspaper sources in Moscow. You can just listen to Vladimir Putin's speeches. You can just listen to what Ryabkov, Lavrov, Peskov, Medvedev, well, all of these people have been saying this whole entire time, right? So they got their hopes up in a bunch. And then they tried to pressure the Russians when they didn't get what it is that they wanted. And remember, after all this, there was constant talk about Vladimir Putin is disrespecting Trump by escalating the bombing of Ukraine right after they have a discussion. And Trump even mentioned something about this, like, oh, I don't know, we have a great discussion. And then, bombs land on Ukraine again. So like they got their hopes up in a bunch. They thought the Russians would be compromising with them where they weren't. And I think the compromises that the Russians were willing to do, we got a glimpse of this when they were talking about the economic stuff, right? I think that the Russians were just like, hey, listen, we'll reopen the Russian economy to America. You guys can pick and choose the winners and losers, we'll play along with you guys. And that's what the Russians think of as a compromise. Donald Trump doesn't look at that as a compromise. He thinks of that as a compromise from our side. Like we're compromising something to, like, oh, we're going to allow you to buy cheap crap made in China with an American sticker on it. The Russians are like, no. That's us giving you a concession. We'll allow you to open McDonald's here again. You're welcome. So I think that's the thing that was the miscommunication. And then we're just like, well, fine, we're going to withhold our economic relief, right? And the Russians are like, well, go ahead. We don't really, that's not a big deal to us. Vladimir Putin even said something about like, we'll survive that. So this entire time, this kind of sub-dialogue has been going on where how much do the Russians need the American economy and how much would they like to be reopened to, let's say, the Americans, right? And I think that if you ask the average Russian, maybe unless it's for their job or for whatever other reason they're interested in having these foreign products, the average Russian will be like, yeah, self-sustainability all the way. They probably would be really, really thrilled about that. They're not thrilled about having to buy their stuff from China or America. There's a huge self-sustainability movement in Russia right now. They're trying to build their own lithography machines and all this other stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think if you ask the average Russian, they're gonna be like, hell no. So this is Vladimir Putin's concession to them. They got confused, and now they're upset. And especially Trump. Trump got confused. Now Trump is upset here. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're probably running low. Oh, we still got a little bit of time. All right. So I don't know. Should we do this guy next? Or this? I'll do this next, and then we'll do the Belgium story afterwards. All right, chip makers, NVIDIA, AMD, and Broadcom are slapping golden handcuffs on workers to meet demand for the AI. Jesus Christ. Inspect. Can I just get rid of this? Can I actually wait? I'm not even going to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. Cut. Archive. Fingers crossed, it's just going to work. Search. No results. All right. Here we go. All right. So chip makers like NVIDIA, Broadcom, and AMD use stock-based pay to retain employees amid the AI boom. Stock payouts, which vest over time, incentivize employees to stay longer at these companies. NVIDIA, Broadcom, and AMD stock values have surged, making RSUs highly lucrative for employees. It's cuffing season for chip makers. As their valuations skyrocket on the back of the AI boom, so do pay packages for employees whose compensation is tied to stock price. Some are anticipating paydays worth millions of dollars. There's one catch: stock payouts unlock over time, rewarding employees to stay with the company longer and penalizing those who skip out sooner. One NVIDIA employee who plans to leave when their equity vests told Business Insider that doing so before would have a big cost, adding, quote, "If I want to leave now, I don't think I can command the salary I have now with another company. I think command the salary I have now with another company." It's a tactic that tech giants such as Amazon and Google have used for years to retain employees. Now that chip makers are striking big deals to meet the growing demand for powering AI, the golden handcuffs at the U.S.'s three largest, NVIDIA, AMD, and Broadcom, are tightening. Business Insider spoke about the impact of these packages with 6 current and former employees at NVIDIA and Broadcom who are not authorized to speak to the press, since both companies have over 36,000 employees receiving a variety, blah, blah, blah. It could take up to, for a lot of them have families, one NVIDIA employee said, and they probably think it logically like, who am I to walk away from this job that guarantees that my kids will never have student debt? Some employees say RSUs can be golden handcuffs now that chip makers have hit it big. Aside from Meta, even the poorest performing AI chip company, AMD, has outpaced the rest of the big tech in the past 2 years. One Broadcom employee who estimated their restricted stock units, or RSUs, are valued at over 6 times their salary, said given the recent rise of the share price, people who have been able to hold on to their shares will now be looking forward to a very comfortable retirement. So this is going to be kind of a long article, so I'm not going to read it all, but so you guys get the gist. So basically, what are they doing? They're trying to find ways, and right now it's like, not very intrusive ways, although some people have said that that it does feel like handcuffs, that they can't leave their company and they have to change their plans because of the changes in pay structure and compensation and all this stuff. But NVIDIA, well, not NVIDIA, but especially companies like Intel have been bleeding employees. So they're trying to find a way to retain the talent in-house.
I don't see the point of this article again. I think that none of this is new. All companies will offer compensation packages to employees whose skills are in demand, right?
Well, it's new because have you heard? Well, yeah, but so as they were talking about, the stock prices going up through the roof, right?
Sure.
But
like the whole article kind of has a slant that this is a bad thing, and the employees are complaining about it. Wow, what a difficult problem to have, that your stock options are not yet vested and they're worth a fortune. Like, talk about first world problems. So these people are saying we can't leave our job because we're shackled by all the money we're making here.
But if you've noticed recently, here, look, Intel stock price in 2000,
right?
Intel stock price 2021. This is where things start to get bad for them, and their stock price starts to get up right here, right? So basically, what's going on is, NVIDIA to invest $5 billion in struggling rival Intel. So I don't know if you've heard about all this stuff. It's some BS where it's like NVIDIA is OpenAI or something is investing in who is it, or Cisco is investing in NVIDIA, who's investing in Intel, and then they're going to pay for their investment. Oh yeah, and then they pay back to NVIDIA some of the money they invested because they're going to be using NVIDIA's chips to be running AI shit. So it's like this big incestuous circle where all of these companies are starting to buy up their main competitors and their main rivals, turning it into like a cartel slowly in slow motion. Let's see. Huang said the Trump administration had no involvement on this partnership at all. Yeah, right. So NVIDIA and Intel are teaming up, and I think that there's people that are unhappy in both companies about this whole situation, and everybody is owning a chunk of everybody now. So Intel is involved with, AMD is involved with, NVIDIA is involved with all of their supposed alleged competitors. So this is why it's a big deal, dude, because these companies are
I don't know. My view on it is, if you're not happy where you work, find another job. Jobs are easy to find. And particularly if this is your problem, right? If your problem was you were underpaid, I could totally get this. But you got a bunch of whiners here who are saying, I'd love to leave, but I'm just making so much money here. No, that's your choice. If you're not happy there, leave, right? Uh, Bradley disappeared. If you're not happy, leave at the end of the day. You only live once. And I've done this myself in my career. There's been times when I've taken jobs for much less money because it was a job that I was interested in doing, or it was an experience I wanted to do, or it was just I wanted to get out of where I was, right? For whatever reason, you make those choices in your career. But, these people, seems to me that they're just whining for the sake of whining. So,
Go ahead and
boo hoo.
before we go. Yeah, I think that for me, the bigger thing is that what we're seeing is they're trying to find clever and creative ways of keeping the talent in-house and not spilling out anywhere else. And they're manipulating the stock prices because all of these companies that invested in each other, all their stock prices skyrocketed. So they're manipulating stock prices, and that's also kind of like what the real talent pay compensation is tied to. So they're basically trying to find ways of it's like taking another step towards the Chinese model of state capitalism mixed with private capitalism, where now it's like, hey, where it's not really quite state capitalism, but we're trying to find soft ways of, kind of like we do with the military. Like, hey, man, your contract's over, but you got a specialty that maybe you can't quite retire yet because it's needed for national security type of thing. But okay, the other story, which I'm glad that we had the time to do this one too. Bloomberg, the European Union put off until December a decision on whether to tap frozen Russian central bank assets to aid Ukraine, threatening an effort to get Ukraine fresh funding by early 2026. So already, what the hell did we just read? That was the first paragraph. European Union put off until December, so they're going to decide in December, right? What the hell happened that they just put this off? Because we'd heard about this. I mean, they've obviously decided that they're going to take the Russian assets, right? Whether to tap the frozen central bank assets to aid Ukraine, threatening an effort to get Ukraine fresh funding by early 2026. So wait, that means you're telling me that if they don't get this funding, they don't get their hands on the frozen Russian assets, there's going to be no Ukraine funding. There's going to be no fresh Ukraine funding. I think that's exactly what they're telling us. Talks.
Well, I think Plan B is. Why am I getting an echo?
You're getting an echo?
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing feedback.
How about now?
Maybe. No, I'm good now. Well, I think I think the thing about this one is, if they don't get the Russian assets, then Plan B will be like floating Eurobonds, and nobody wants that because they can't agree to that. They've been trying to set up Eurobonds for years, and they can't reach an agreement on it.
This might be the way that they do it, though. But no, it's not going to be, because they're going to just take those assets. I'm telling you, they're just going to take them. That's going to happen.
Well, I mean, at this point, why not, right? Like, and I've always said this, they've done so much damage to their credibility at this point. It's just as well to take them because, well, seriously, who's going to be putting their money in Euroclear ever
Nobody's
again?
Sane. Nobody that has a shred of self-preservation.
So just finish your pirating EU, and then you'll go off and die somewhere, because that's where it's going to lead to. The EU is on its death knell here. And they're panicking. They don't know what to do.
It's funny. Like I always more or less agreed with you on that, but like it's just over time, it's always more and more clear. It's always more and more obvious. Ultimately,
the more you look at it too, like, and you look at what it is that they produce, and you start to say to yourself, not a really useful continent over there. Like nice buildings, great tourism. They've got a couple companies over there, like in Germany with like chemicals companies and things like that, for sure, but they're all dying. So who are they going to be left with? ASML and Airbus? Like
Rheinmetall.
What else do they make there? Yeah. Well, Rheinmetall, it's just another.
Rheinmetall is up for debate. Who knows? You need
Right.
energy to smelt metal.
Yeah. So, I mean, Europe is, they're finished kaput, my friend. I mean, you got the Chinese making their own lithography machines. It's just a matter of time before they blow ASML away. And same thing with the airplanes. I mean, they've got their own airline now, and that'll only continue to grow.
How many more ships do the Chinese are the Chinese capable of making than the United States? Like thousands more every year or something. So it's like that with other stuff too. Okay. Talks stalled. This should have been the first paragraph. This is what should have been the headline. Talks stalled after Belgium demanded greater assurances it wouldn't be held liable for risks linked to the proposal. 140 billion euros, $163 billion in loans given. The money is mostly held in Belgium. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So they had this plan. They had this brilliant plan. Guys, it's time to tap into the frozen Russian assets, right? And then they were like, all right, Belgium, you first. And then Belgium is like, okay, but only if we get greater assurances that we won't be held liable for risks linked to this proposed billions of dollars in loans, given the money's held in Belgium. So
sounds reasonable to me.
Right?
Yeah.
And apparently they didn't expect this because for some reason
they thought the Belgians were idiots. Belgians know how the Belgians are, well, in Belgium, where the EU is. They know how slippery these EU guys are more than anybody, right? So no, of course he's going to cover his ass.
Think how understated they're just like. They didn't even say no. They didn't say, oh, this might be a bad idea, right? They said, all right, boss, let's do this. But first, let's sign the death pact. We're all getting in trouble for this theft, right? We're all going to break the window. You're going to break the window with me. We're going to steal the assets. Okay, we're all stealing the assets. We all share the responsibility. As soon as Belgium said that, they're like, oh, holy crap, holy shit. Wait, I don't know about that. You know what? Talk stalled.
Well,
they stalled
and there
the talk.
You go. Which goes back to my point earlier when I said this war is not going to last much longer because Europe doesn't have any money and nobody has any weapons and nobody wants to fund it. So,
they
this
can't.
Thing's going to be wrapped up quickly.
In order to
I
fund
agree.
it, they need those assets. They've admitted this earlier in this article. Ultimately,
you've got option one. These is pirating the assets, or option two would be floating Eurobonds, which won't happen.
And massive austerity, Eurobonds, and loans from the freaking IMF, and all three of those, and then some.
Well, I think option three is probably the most likely. They're going to say, okay, who can give at the collection plate this month, right? Who can give at the collection plate this year? Like, you got to understand, these guys are still, and I'm talking about the Starmers, the globalist types, the Mertzes, the Starmers, the
real Kool-Aid drinking, bonkers out to lunch lunatics.
All the WEF crowd, they're still trying, they're just thinking, we just got to wait out Trump. And that's why they always say, oh, we need to rearm because we're going to go to war with Russia in 3 years or whatever. Well, it just so coincidentally happened. Or we just got to fund Ukraine for 3 more years. 3 more years, we got to fund them. That's it. So I think the most likely option is what you're seeing now is they're all taking turns. Like the Green Goblin will show up in London and Starmer will cut him a check for $2 billion. And then 6 months later, Macron will cut him a check, or somebody else, Canada will cut him a check. So I think you're going to see that going around for a while, and they're going to say, okay, who can give? But realistically, the only countries who can give in this NATO cabal would really, because we know the US won't. So the only countries who are in a position to give really would be Canada, the UK, France, Germany, and maybe some of the Nordic countries. That's it. Nobody else has got any money, right? You're not gonna see Greece, forking over $1 billion
Haven't they
anytime
already
soon.
laughed at that idea?
Yeah. So, and when you look at it that way, how many times is the collection plate going to keep going around when you say, geez, I'm going to have to miss church this week, you know? So, yeah, it's just a matter of time, I think. Nobody wants to fund this war. It's not popular with anybody in their
And you
home
notice how
country.
they said how they for a long time they kept bringing up, oh, reparations, right? This isn't reparations talk at all. This is what? Finance the war talk. In order to finance the war, we need to get our grubby hands on those Russian assets. Ultimately, EU leaders asked the European Commission, the EU's executive arm, to come up with Ukraine financing options to consider at their next summit. European Council President Antonio Costa told reporters that he expects a final decision then. Any further delay could cause setbacks for Ukraine, which needs a new injection of funds by early 2026. They need that injection of funds. You know what? Take it out of your paycheck, bro. Why are you taking it out of other? Why does this make it moral to steal somebody's stuff? Ukraine's
Yeah.
European allies increasingly see tapping Russian assets as the only viable way. The only way to continue financing Kiev in its fight against Moscow's full-scale invasion. Rule of thumb, we know that anytime you read full-scale invasion, you're reading anti-Russian propaganda. Currently well into its fourth year, the bill is growing after the U.S. President Donald Trump's administration halted funding for Ukraine, saying it would only sell weapons paid for by other Western allies. The European Council commits to address Ukraine's pressing financial needs for 26 through 27, including for its military and defense efforts, leaders said in their conclusions. The European Council invites the Commission to present as soon as possible options for financial support based on assessment of Ukraine's financing needs. Belgium has reported, I love it. We gotta assess their financing needs. Wait. Why don't you start with assessing your financial capabilities that you have to relieve somebody else's financial needs? I think you're starting with the wrong problem here. Belgium has repeatedly voiced reservations about using the Russian assets, as the biggest share of the funds, about 180 billion euros, sits at Brussels-based clearinghouse Euroclear. The country is worried about being left on the hook if Russia successfully sues to get the money back. Moscow has said it will retaliate if the assets are seized. The EU plans don't include seizing the assets outright. Speaking ahead of the summit on Thursday, Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever warned that he won't sign up to the initiative unless other countries addressed his concerns. So see, it's not saying no, but just like you said, they know what time it is in Belgium, and they know what this is. They know what you're suggesting that they do. And the fact that they didn't just say, of course, Belgium, of course, obviously, this just goes without saying, means that they knew that they were going to be throwing the Belgians under the bus, and they gave no fucks. The Russians would have come for their money, and they would have. And I don't know. People always say the Russians always come for their money. I don't know. I'm Russian, and I'm not that. And I don't come for my money. I have no idea how much money people owe me, so I don't know about that. But these Russians will come for their money.
Oh, well.
So they will come for their money, and then Belgium does not want to be on the hook.
It's a good time to wrap up, man.
Oh, yeah. I guess. All right, fine. We didn't get to finish the article. We also didn't get to do 2 scoops because I don't have 2 scoops ready. So, okay. I guess this will be our episode 33. There's still much more news to discuss, but like always, we are running out because we pigeonhole in on topics and stuff. But I guess
we should really put some thought into what we talk about, hey?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have so much more stuff I want to bring up.
If only we came up with some sort of outline or whatever, as opposed to just going on and winging it. But, maybe we'll grow up one day.
That's right. Instead of just going over whatever I've been reading. But okay, guys. So yes, that's our episode 33. Next time we'll owe you 4 scoops of crazy. But I think we gave you guys 4 scoops of crazy last time. So I feel at ease. But all right, guys. So peace.
All right. Cheers, everyone. Have a good week. Go Jays.